I've been traveling. I'm now back at the apartment in Dubai, but we are about 24 hours away from the budget tomorrow, which I'm going to be covering here on the channel, both live and also providing some afterthoughts once all of the announcements are out there and we know exactly what is going to be introduced. I think it's safe to say that we're in for a bit of a surprise. I think if by their own language they say it's going to be painful, we're going to be introduced to a raft of changes. And I don't know about you, but I feel like this is one of the most significant budgets that we have had in a very, very, very long time. And it's definitely going to set the tone for perhaps the way things are going to go in 2025 and beyond. But personally, from a personal finance point of view, I think it's going to have a huge impact across the band for people at different levels, particularly if you're either low income, middle income, or high income. They've said that they wouldn't try and impact anyone in the low income space, but there is a headline today talking about the fact that Rachel Reeves is likely to continue to freeze the tax thresholds until 2030. Now, that might not seem like it's a very innocuous thing to do, but it is going to impact everyone. It's called fiscal drag, and I think that's worthwhile talking about in this video. Now, the idea behind fiscal drag is that if she did freeze the tax thresholds and extends it to 2030, tomorrow, this will essentially pull millions of more people paying higher taxes as they get pay rises, they move jobs, they earn more bonuses or more commissions. Over the course of the next 6 years, it's going to mean that millions of people are going to pay more in taxes. And it's not necessarily a direct increase in taxes, so i.e., you're a basic rate taxpayer, you pay 20% tax on your income, you still have your personal allowance, that will remain intact. It's not that the 20% that you pay increases to 22%, or if you're a higher rate and you're 40%, it's not that that rate moves up to 45%, for example. No, everything stays the same, but because you potentially earn more money, you're going to get dragged into a higher tax band automatically. Now, I've been reading an article, and it was a really, really interesting article around how this is going to impact people on lower incomes. Because ultimately, if you look at inflation, I think it's safe to say that inflation impacts us very differently. For someone who is on low income to middle income to high earners, the amount of disposable cash that you have available to buy the things that you actually need varies. And so for a low income household, the impacts of inflation is absolutely huge. And freezing the tax threshold also has a negative impact on low-income households as well. And I think this is going to go underneath the radar to a certain extent if this is indeed introduced tomorrow. And I think partly because, well, we don't really get taught any of this stuff in school. And this is definitely something that they can introduce. And Labour aren't the first to do this. Jeremy Hunt did this. The Tories have also done this in the past. And I think it's an easy way for them to increase income tax revenues without getting real kickback from the general public. Now, it's really important to note this, right? Because at the end of the day, this is an income tax increase indirectly. And if you've been following here on the channel, I've been repeatedly saying that I did not see how they were going to keep the party manifesto of not increasing income tax, national insurance contributions, and VAT on working people. And we've had the debate around what they deem to be a working person. I think we'll get clarity on that tomorrow. But there was no real way that they were going to do that, bearing in mind that income tax and insurance contributions are about 42% of the government's tax revenue. It's the largest portion of it. So to say that you're not going to increase either of those immediately backs you into a corner and doesn't necessarily make what you want to do practical in a way. But they found, I guess, in my opinion, and I'd love to know what you think in the comment section down below, two very easy ways to be able to introduce those changes and increase an indirect increase to working people by way of fees and thresholds if she does it tomorrow. And what we think she is definitely going to do tomorrow is increase national insurance contribution tax on employers. And we've already spoken about what impact that's going to likely have on people who are on low incomes, maybe on zero contract hours, or you're just working part-time. Employers are already saying that we're going to have to compensate for this in some way, shape, or form. So again, it's an indirect tax. And again, they can do this because we're not necessarily clued up on these types of matters. And they'll announce it tomorrow if they do, and be very, very smug with themselves in the fact that they've been able to introduce something indirectly. But that's what we know at this point in time. I will give an update tomorrow, and I'll do a live reaction and maybe provide a few more thoughts. What I will say is this: if you're not already subscribed to my mailing list, I'll provide a little bit more of a detailed breakdown of what this will mean later on in the week on my mailing list. So there will be a link in the description down below. Definitely go and sign up so you get included in that. And I'll probably have it out maybe back end of the week on Friday with a little bit more details. And of course, with maybe a little bit of information of some things that you can do to safeguard yourself. I think it's safe to say, and bearing in mind, this is Tuesday, the budget is happening tomorrow, the use of tax-efficient wrappers is going to become even more important moving forward, particularly if they increase capital gains tax. And I'm hoping that they don't touch anything with pensions. But at this point, I think everything's really on the table. Now, before you go, I do want to have a candid moment with you. We've been covering quite a lot about the budget over the past 4 to 6 weeks here on the channel. And I get it. It's quite a negative thing to cover. People are rightly annoyed, pissed off, disappointed. And with that comes this, I guess, realization that things are going to be hard, and we start to figure out what that's going to mean for us. I've been covering a lot of this stuff, not because we're a political channel, but because it's important for us to understand what might be coming down the road, and more importantly, getting us thinking preemptively early about the things that we can do to make our situation a little bit better. Now, with that being said, there is nothing we can do now to change what is going to happen tomorrow. They are going to use their mandate because they did win the election, and they're going to do what they think is going to move the country forward. And whether you voted for Labour or not, I didn't vote for Labour, I didn't vote for the Tories, this is where we find ourselves right now. But, and this is a big but, we do have agency. Okay, we're not helpless children. There are things that we can do in our career, in our business, in our personal finance. And I mentioned those three things because if you're in a career working for an employer, that's your place of work. There are things that you can do there. There are things that if you're self-employed, like I am, running a business, there will be things that you can do there. And both of those two things are going to impact your personal finance, which is really where you're going to feel the pinch of whatever it is they announce tomorrow. And so I mention those three things because it's all about controlling the controllables. We've talked a lot about earning more money and, trying to be as efficient as possible. I personally feel like we're going to find ourselves in this kind of situation again at some point in the future because we always do. This is not the first time we've been here. So here's my challenge to you. What are the things that you can do right now? What are the lessons that you can learn right now and improve upon that will mean that you can be in a better place 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, hell, even when the next time this type of thing happens? We need to be preemptive. We need to be proactive in trying to better own our own personal finances ourselves, because no one's going to do it for us. And that is just the truth of the matter. So that is my challenge to you. Please don't give up your strength. Please don't give up your own agency. Yes, it's going to be difficult. I'm not saying that it isn't. Obviously, it will be difficult and people will feel it to different degrees at different levels of the earning structure. But if we wallow in our own pity and we resign to the fact that the government is against us and the government is going to make our lives a misery, then I think that's giving up the battle and conceding defeat. And you don't win battles when you concede defeat or you carry a defeatist mentality. And I think, one of the things that I haven't enjoyed seeing on the channel is the comment section where there feels like a lot of frustration and to a certain degree a defeatist mentality. I don't think that is proactive. I don't think it's beneficial. I don't think it's something that puts us in the best position to thrive. And maybe I need to take some accountability in the fact that I've covered some of this stuff knowingly, but I think having these conversations is important for the educational side of what this channel is all about. But anyway, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.